Now, when you think of the Wilderness Road, you always think of Daniel Boone. He's the one that made it famous. But there's so much history here that I can only scratch the surface of things that's happened in these beautiful mountains along this Wilderness Road. Such gorgeous country. But so many mysteries are still, to this day, in these mountains. Untold stories of forgotten faces, forgotten people that never made it to the promised land. But this road winds through a place called Cumberland Gap. And I'm going to share a few of these short stories with you of mysterious happenings. This is the modern Wilderness Road, just like an interstate in most part, and people haven't got a clue what history they're driving over. Now, this is US 58 coming out of Virginia towards the Gap. Beautiful country through here if you've never seen it. So beautiful going along the base of this Cumberland Mountain towards the Gap. And like I said, comes out of Virginia as US 58 and turns into US 25E up into Kentucky. And you've got such breathtaking views along this old road down out of Virginia, the White Rocks. This is Powell Valley from Virginia all the way down into Tennessee. Beautiful valley, nestled at the foot of the Cumberland Mountain. And along the way, they've got historical parks here, trying to remember some of our history of the old people when they settled this country. But the old roads are still here, crisscrossing across the new road. They just run parallel with it, but large section of it is still in existence. And I love to travel that, because this is where the history's at. So much history has passed through here over the years. And I like to stop these little mom and pop gas stations or whatever along the highway, and I'll talk to people, and they'll tell me little stories, but they don't want to be interviewed. So they've told me so many little stories that their family or they've seen or witnessed. And here is a map of the Wilderness Road. Starts up in New England, comes down in the Great Valley Road, and turns into the Wilderness Road about Roanoke. And it's approximately 200 miles long in the red here. This is the road that settled the West back in its day. And right in the nestle in the middle of it is Cumberland Gap. Now this old road was started way back before any man come in here. Wildlife. This was trails of the buffalo, the elk. They traveled, migrating from season to season across this mountain, creating these little trails. And this is what they look like. Just old trails, walled out by the animals, traveling back and forth through every little pass and gap in these mountains. And they just followed the path of least resistance. Through these hollers, through these gaps, through these passes, through these mountains, along the river and waterways. And the next thing, the Native Americans come in here thousands of years ago, and they used these trails that the animals had been using. And here's the great Indian nations, Shawnee and the Cherokee, and they used these trails as warpaths. Here's a map of their old warpaths between the tribes. But then the white man come in here, the settlers. European settlers worked their way in here into this country. And the Native Americans was peaceful at first, but then they began to resent the white man being in here. And here's the trails that Daniel Boone blazed and set up in here back in the early days. And they all set up little homesteads like this throughout the area along the Wilderness Road, trying to settle. Some peaceful, some not. So much history has passed here. And we know all the famous people, but all these people that tried to come through here were just little families, little groups nobody knows about, and they're just forgotten, and some didn't make it. And back in them days, it was kill or be killed. This was the frontier. The Native Americans resented any kind of encroachment on their land as time went on, and they fought for it too. And here's just a prime example. This is around London, Kentucky. This happened. These Indian war parties would just massacre everybody if they could. But still they came. Little bands that nobody knowed about, little families, little communities decided they'd go west to start them a future. And this was rugged land. And they were being watched at all times by the Native Americans. And when it was in their favor, they took advantage of it. They just jumped on it. And it was just a massacre sometimes. They would just kill everybody, families, it didn't matter. Women, children, men, plunder everything. But that was the price of being in their land. Now, during the day, they say in certain areas of this road, it's peaceful. But there's a certain place here, they say I've heard talk, when it got dark, they could hear Indians attacking, fighting going on, and just pure chaos in the distance, but nothing there. But they said the most saddest sound they've ever heard is that of a baby crying for its mommy. That's a sad sound. So much tragedy has happened along this road that nobody knows nothing about. And there's another part of the road I've heard stories on. This is the actual Wilderness Road, old section of it. Goes up into a real steep curve up here. And they say there was some tragedy here back in the days of the early automobile. A young couple come through here and had a real bad car wreck. Killed them both. This is what the locals told me. And they said on certain nights of the year, there would be a woman walking up the road in a white dress. But never no man seen, just a woman. And there've been times people's walked this road at night and heard something following them, parallel to them along the road. And they would watch, and something in white just following them along this old road. And they said they've witnessed this many a time. Old stories of old legends of things that's happened over time. So much has happened along this old road. But I like to get out off the main road, off the pavement, just off of this Wilderness Road, off these mountains and hollers that just connect to it, up along this road. And I like to explore the old history The old graveyards of these old pioneers. Their times and their struggles on the side of these mountains that are just about forgotten. And some that only our good Lord knows who they are. Their times and their struggles. Just off the edge of this old wilderness road on these knobs and these little hills that comes down out of these mountains. Beautiful country, but it's unforgiving back in them days. And I've heard stories, the old timers would tell me at these places, at certain nights on this wilderness roads, they'd be driving down through here on just certain times. And there'd be somebody in white walking down the road. Just all at once when they come around the curve, there'd be somebody just standing in the road or walking down the road just to stop. What, did I see something? They'd stop and look around, nobody there. It just disappeared. And I've heard reports too that there's a certain section of the road in Kentucky that people back in the early days before the newer roads, they would hit something with their vehicle, but there'd be nothing there. No animal. They would never see nothing. And it would mess their car up. And this is so many stories of thousands and thousands of soldiers, north and south, traveled this wilderness road for position above the gap. And so much of this history is just forgotten. How these pioneers struggled along this road. Their old homes, their old farmhouses. Just being forgotten and going away. And I'm trying to remember these stories of our people and their struggles. These old places are just about a thing of our past. Even the old stores of yesterday. They're not long in this world, being gone forever, just in our memories. Most of them look like this, if that at all. Old chimneys, burnt out, old places gone. But a lot of these old places are being restored. People are trying hard to restore them. And this brings us to my next story here. Of somebody, we try to rewire these old houses. They ain't nothing worse than trying to rewire an old house. I used to do this on the side when I wasn't working in the mines. Old houses like this that had insulators, a neutral and a hot. That's old. That's when electricity first come out. No ground, just a hot and a neutral on an insulator between the houses. And this old guy I knowed, he was wiring houses, and him and his buddy had been wiring houses. Well, he was wiring a house one day, working by himself, and he had to get up under the floor and push a wire up through to the kitchen. And he kept feeling uneasy, and all at once he heard somebody holler his name, and he turned around, and there's what he seen. If I'd seen that, I would have passed out. But anyway, there's so many stories. And around here, around Cumberland Gap National Park now, there used to be a place called this Cumberland Mountain here. The road used to go across, 25E did. A place called Cudjoe's Cave. This is a big stopping point. Tourist place. Right here at one time, most of you might remember it. The younger generation would never remember it. But this used to be called Massacre Mountain. But now, you don't go over the mountain. They put a tunnel through the mountain. So now you don't go over it, you go under. And it goes about 1 mile, and it comes out in Minnesboro on the Kentucky side. So much history being bypassed. And these old roads, most people just go from point A to point B and don't have a clue what's under their feet or under their wheels as they travel through. there's so much history here, so many people that's died, that's never made it to their western journey back in the old days of the pioneers. And people are they've just been covered up by pavement as the road got wider and wider, and they're forgotten about and lost in time. So who knows what you might see along this old wilderness road. This new road crosses, the old one just crisscrosses back and forth what's left of it. So I want to thank you for watching. I love to tell these old stories and remember our history. So, God bless, take care, and I'll see you next time.